So, as the son of an Air Force colonel who spent the entirety of my childhood growing up on military installations with military people, it shouldn't surprise anybody that I look at war as a fitting metaphor for both life and business. The main difference between war and life being that wars are generally campaigns that are fought with definite beginnings and definite endings, and life being essentially one continuous battle. But I want to give you a little bit of history of the longest battle in the world. The longest battle in modern history, at least, was the Battle of Verdun. It was fought between the Germans and the French during World War I from about mid-February of 1916 through mid-December of 1916. So in this one singular battle, and by the way, I said a battle, not a war. This is a continuous battle going on from February to December, 10 months. In this one singular battle, the Germans lost about 143,000 men, and the French lost 162,000 men. And on top of that, there were an additional 300,000 casualties in that battle that didn't result in death. So 300,000 deaths, 300,000 casualties, 600,000 people were injured or killed in a single battle over a period of 10 months. Now, that number itself is astounding, but consider a few more facts about this battle. Number one, the battle was designed by the German army, to be what they called a meat grinder from the very beginning. There was absolutely no particular goal other than to wear the French down. Okay. Second, 9 villages were completely wiped off the face of the earth during the battle. All that remains to this day are a few signs designating that those towns used to exist. The French relied on one road to supply the entire battle. The road was later named La Voie Sacrée, the Sacred Way, to commemorate its contribution to the effort. But the French, again, think about that. They relied on one single road to supply the battle. And finally, the French are widely considered to eventually have won the Battle of Verdun simply by outlasting the Germans. What that did was it allowed the British to launch an assault on the Somme River, which redirected the Germans' attention from Verdun, and eventually essentially helped end this war. So massive additional casualties were inflicted on the Germans at the Somme, causing many to say that the Somme was actually the defining moment for Allied victory. So in history, while it's accepted that the Germans lost the Battle of Verdun, the reasons behind the loss have been argued about amongst historians and strategists for over 100 years, right? Some attribute the loss to this hubris of the German leadership, and then others point to poor planning and disorganization, and still others kind of unpopularly suggest that the German army just wasn't strong enough for the task at hand. So from the French side, they point out the courage of the troops to stand their ground under the most extreme circumstances, the ability of the French commanders to rapidly change course and try new strategies, and some even attribute this success to the selflessness of the French soldiers and their desires to save their comrades. So, really interesting battle. But what does it have to do with business? So the author Robert Greene, in his, and he wrote 48 Laws of Power, a book called Mastery, a book called The Art of Seduction, all books that I recommend. But he's fond of saying, as in war, so in life. And I've come to find my own version of this maxim to be, as in life, so in business. And that's something that I share with my clients. So to that end, I often spend a lot of time with those clients discussing the attributes necessary to, quote-unquote, win the war versus attributes that lose the war. And I discuss that in relation to their business and life endeavors. And I believe that making this distinction and choosing the winner's path whenever possible is key to sustaining entrepreneurial success and fulfillment. So here are 6 distinctions that I find between winners and losers that I think are most important for entrepreneurs to consider. Number 1 is courage versus cowardice. So often the right thing to do isn't the easy thing to do. We see this in our everyday interactions with our peers, as well as in nearly every area of our business. Courage is the ability to be fearful, yet still make strong decisions, knowing that the outcome isn't guaranteed. Let me say that again. Courage is the ability to be fearful, yet still make strong decisions, knowing that the outcome isn't guaranteed. Cowardice, on the other hand, is a trait wherein fear and excessive self-concern override doing or saying what is right, good, and of help to others or of oneself in a time of need. So the fear and the excessive self-concern override doing what's right. So the ability to be courageous in the face of our fears, to me, is a defining characteristic of success. The second distinction is fortitude versus resignation. Okay, so like courage, fortitude is required by the business owner, especially in times of uncertainty. But fortitude is the application of courage over a long period of time. What I find is that too often entrepreneurs give up too soon. They often give up right before they're about to make a breakthrough. Okay, so fortitude is the act of sustaining effort throughout failure over time. Resignation, again being the distinction, is the acceptance that failure is inevitable, okay, and it's going to happen. So in his book, The Dip, Seth Godin explains that the secret to pushing through extended periods of strife, okay, by the way, pushing through extended periods of strife could also be called fortitude, is using quote-unquote strategic quitting to get focused on the things that matter most and to eliminate those that don't. So this fortitude hack, if you will, can help even the most mired-in entrepreneur press through the hard spots and achieve success. So the second distinction, fortitude versus resignation. The next is discipline versus negligence. As I mentioned many times on these videos or other places, I believe that willpower is finite. We only have so much of it. And that's to say that the sheer command to ourselves to, quote, just do it isn't always enough. So we have to activate discipline to consistently and systematically do the difficult things in order to have success. And when you have discipline, you have self-control. Negligence is the pure lack of self-control, the inability, or perhaps more accurately, the disinterest in doing the things that we know will propel us forward in a consistent way over time. So discipline over negligence. The next is sacrifice versus greed. Okay, sacrifice is the act of giving up something valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important or worthy. Okay, greed is selfish, and it's a selfish, excessive desire for more of something, such as money, power, fame, more than is needed. So as entrepreneurs, we often become attracted to the idea of having it all, and we make decisions purely on the idea that having more is good. So the wise entrepreneur knows that they should constantly be pruning and simplifying their business to focus on the things that help them most accomplish their goals. Okay, giving up something of value for the sake of something more important or worthy. The trick here isn't adding more stuff, it's taking stuff away. So sacrifice versus greed. The next is temperance versus agitation. So overreaction has been the death knell of lots and lots of entrepreneurs' dreams. Temperance is the act of allowing upsets to occur without the need to forcefully react in an immediate fashion, right? So the temperate entrepreneur knows that most challenges are absolutely not what they seem at first blush, and that to moderate their immediate response puts them in a better position to move strongly at a later time. Okay, so the agitated entrepreneur makes hasty decisions without considering the longer-term consequences of their actions, and they unknowingly then place themselves in peril. So the smart entrepreneur will practice temperance over agitation. And the final distinction is confidence versus self-doubt. You are worthy is a phrase that I find myself repeating to clients over and over again. So the isolation and the uncertainty of entrepreneurship really makes it difficult oftentimes for the entrepreneur to judge if their actions are quote-unquote right or wrong. So the confident entrepreneur builds a faith or a belief that they're going to act in a right, proper, and effective way, and then he or she moves directly toward those actions. The lack of confidence in oneself or one's abilities, self-doubt, drives habits that keep the entrepreneur kind of in a stuck mode or a safe mode, okay, where they're unable to make the big moves that are required for massive and sustained success. So driving out this self-doubt is an absolute key indicator for success. So there you go. There are 6 distinctions between winners and losers, or winning and losing behaviors, that I think are most important for entrepreneurs to consider. Number 1 is courage versus cowardice. Number 2, fortitude versus resignation. Number 3, discipline versus negligence. Number 4, sacrifice versus greed. Number 5, temperance versus agitation. And number 6, confidence versus self-doubt. That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video or this audio if you're listening, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.